Alright, so this happened about a year ago, and I still get chills thinking about it. I just moved into this apartment. Nothing fancy, just your typical older building, a bit run down, but affordable. Perfect for a broke college grad like me. The place had this charm, though. Wooden floors, high ceilings, that creaky character you kind of expect from an old building. I remember the day I moved in, there was this smell. Not bad, not overwhelming, but kind of musty, like wet wood mixed with dust. I figured, hey, it's an old place, probably just hasn't been aired out in a while. So I opened all the windows, turned on a fan, and it eventually faded. Or maybe I just got used to it. After a few weeks of living there, I started noticing small, weird things. Like I'd put my keys on the counter, and the next thing I know, they'd be on the coffee table, or my closet light would turn on by itself. It was always just a bit unsettling, but I convinced myself I was just being careless, maybe still adjusting to a new space. Then one night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to this scratching noise. It was faint, almost like someone was rubbing their fingers along the wall. My first thought was rats, or maybe squirrels, I don't know. I was pretty freaked out, but I managed to fall back asleep. This kept happening though, almost every night around the same time, and then the smell came back, worse this time, like moldy soil or something rotting. I finally called the landlord, told him about the smell and the noises. He barely seemed to care, but promised he'd send someone to check it out, and that was it. I didn't hear back. Days went by and the noises got louder. Eventually I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to do a little investigating myself. One Saturday, I started tapping around, looking for weak spots in the walls. I know, kinda nuts, but I just had to know where the noise was coming from. So I'm knocking around the bedroom, and when I get to the back corner, there's this hollow sound. Like a totally different echo. I start feeling around, and suddenly I realize there's a crack in the wall. It's tiny, almost invisible, but definitely there. Now, anyone else probably would have called it quits right there, but no, not me. I grabbed a screwdriver and chipped away at the crack until eventually there was this small hole, just big enough to look through. On the other side, it was pitch black. I could barely make out what was there, but it felt wrong. The air was thick, stale, and something about it gave me this immediate gut-wrenching sense of dread. But of course, I couldn't leave it alone. I wanted to know what was behind that wall. South I kept going, widening the hole until I could squeeze through. When I finally crawled into the hidden space, my flashlight hit something that made my stomach turn. The walls were covered in writing. I couldn't make out most of it because it was faded and scratched, but there were symbols, strange shapes, and what looked like names or initials carved all over. And then I saw this thing on the floor. It was some kind of bundle, wrapped in cloth and tied with string. I couldn't bring myself to touch it at first. I just stared at it, paralyzed, my mind racing. It looked like a bundle of clothes, or maybe something worse. But eventually I couldn't resist. I had to know. As I bent down to touch it, I heard that scratching noise again, right next to my ear. I froze, every hair on my neck standing up. And then, from the shadows, this voice whispered, "Leave." I've never moved so fast in my life. I scrambled back through the hole, tore out of that room, and didn't stop until I was outside, in the middle of the street. I didn't go back in that apartment until my friend showed up the next day to help me move out. I didn't even tell the landlord what I found. I didn't want to know, honestly. I left everything behind. The furniture, my stuff, everything. The worst part? A few months later, I looked up the apartment building online, out of curiosity, and found an article. Apparently, years ago, there was this incident. A guy had gone missing, right around the time the building was built. Some people said he was a recluse who rarely left his apartment. They never found his body, just his wallet and some clothes. Weirdly enough, wrapped up in a bundle. After reading that article, I didn't sleep for days. I kept thinking about that bundle I'd found, and how it was wrapped up, almost like a gift. And the scratching noise. Could that have been him, stuck somewhere behind that wall, trying to get out? The more I thought about it, the worse it got. Every single detail from that night came rushing back, replaying over and over. It felt like I'd brought something with me when I left that apartment, like whatever was back there wasn't done with me. I figured it was just my mind playing tricks, but then weird things started happening in my new place. At first it was small stuff, easy to explain away, lights flickering, the TV turning on by itself. I'd brush it off, telling myself it was just electrical issues or maybe even my imagination. But things escalated pretty quickly. One night around 3 a.m., I woke up to that same scratching noise coming from the walls, just like before. I sat up in bed, holding my breath, convincing myself I was dreaming. But there it was, louder this time, almost frantic. The sound moved along the wall like it was following something, inching closer and closer to the headboard. I was too scared to turn the light on. I didn't want to see whatever it was. I lay there, paralyzed, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore it. And then, just like in the old apartment, I heard that whisper, "Leave." I sat straight up, my heart pounding. I was done. I spent the rest of that night on my couch, wide awake, with every light in the place turned on. The next day I tried to tell myself that it was just a bad dream, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Whatever I'd disturbed in that hidden room, I'd brought it with me. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. I'd wake up to the scratching sound almost every night at the exact same time, 3 a.m., like clockwork. And each time it seemed louder, like it was coming from inside the walls of my bedroom. I even tried playing white noise to drown it out, but it didn't help. In fact, the white noise just made it worse, because now I could feel the vibrations, like someone was scratching from the other side of my headboard. Then came the whispers. They were so faint at first that I thought they were just in my head. But they'd always say the same thing, over and over. "You shouldn't have opened it." Like a warning on repeat. It was almost like it was taunting me, reminding me of my mistake. I thought about going back to the building, telling someone what I'd found, maybe even apologizing, though I didn't know who or what I'd be apologizing to. One night, after weeks of sleepless nights, I couldn't take it anymore. I called up my friend, the one who helped me move out of that place, and practically begged him to stay over. He thought I was losing it, but he agreed, probably just to calm me down. We stayed up late, playing games, watching movies, anything to keep me distracted. But eventually, he crashed on the couch, and I tried to settle into bed. Just as I was drifting off, I heard it again, that scratching. It was so loud this time, like it was right inside the walls. My friend must have heard it too, because I heard him stir on the couch. Then, just as I was about to call out to him, I saw something in the corner of my room. It was a shadow, but darker than anything I'd ever seen, almost like a void. It didn't have a shape, not really. Just this dense blackness that felt like it was watching me. I wanted to scream, to wake up my friend, but I couldn't move. My whole body was frozen, locked in place as that thing started moving closer, the scratching getting louder with every inch. It leaned over me, filling up my vision until everything went black, and I heard it whisper in my ear one last time, "You can't run." When I woke up, it was morning, and my friend was shaking me awake. He said he'd tried to wake me up for hours, but couldn't. He even told me I'd been mumbling in my sleep, saying things like, "Help me," and "It's here." But he couldn't see anything. He hadn't heard anything. For him, it was like nothing had happened. After that night, I didn't wait around to see if things would get worse. I packed up, broke my lease, and moved halfway across the country, crashing with family until I could get back on my feet. Since then, I haven't heard any scratching, no whispers, no shadows. But every now and then, right around 3 a.m., I'll wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, half expecting to hear that voice again. And sometimes, I do.